Most people think Google Antigravity is just another AI coding assistant that helps you write code faster. They set it up, they ask it to generate a few functions, maybe debug some errors, and treat it like a slightly smarter autocomplete. But that's a massive underutilization of what's actually possible, because Google Antigravity isn't just a code generator, it's an agent-first development environment that can autonomously plan, execute, and verify complex tasks across your entire workflow. And the difference between someone who uses Google Antigravity as a basic coding helper and someone who uses it better than 99% of people isn't just knowing the chat interface exists. It's understanding the agent architecture, the parallel execution capabilities, and the browser integration that turns a simple AI assistant into a complete autonomous development system. Now, most developers are still thinking in the old paradigm: human writes code, AI helps. But Antigravity was built around a completely different philosophy. Instead of you constantly editing code directly, you deploy agents that handle entire workflows while you focus on the bigger picture. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to use Google Antigravity the way it was actually designed to be used. We'll cover the Agent Manager for parallel task execution, browser integration for automated testing and recording, multi-model strategies for different types of work, and real workflows that showcase what's possible when you stop treating it like a coding assistant and start treating it like an autonomous development team. Now, if you want to master AI tools and learn how to build profitable SaaS apps and websites and AI agents and mobile apps with AI, I've created a complete masterclass that shows you exactly how to do it step by step. Now, this masterclass normally costs $299 to join, but since you are watching this video, thank you very much, you can join completely free. Just check out the link in the description below to get free access to my masterclass, and you can start building your AI-powered business today. Most people who struggle with Google Antigravity run into the same problem right at the beginning. They open it up and then they treat it like a regular IDE. They start writing code line by line, manually editing files and using the agent like it's just a smarter autocomplete. It feels familiar, yeah, so it makes sense to approach it that way, but that's exactly what holds them back. That approach completely just misses what Antigravity is actually built for. It's not designed for traditional coding workflows where you control every single line. It's built around something very different, and that's where everything starts to change. The real difference comes from moving into agent-first development. So at that point, the focus is no longer writing code manually. The focus moves to outcomes. You're no longer thinking about functions or individual files. You're thinking about features, behaviors, and what the final result should look like. So instead of writing a function yourself, you describe what the feature needs to do. Instead of debugging line by line, you let the agent analyze the issue and then propose a fix. Your role changes from doing the work directly to directing how the work gets done. You guide the process, review the results, and refine it as needed. That also changes how you think about structure. In traditional development, everything revolves around managing code across multiple files. You keep track of where things are, how they connect, and how changes affect the rest of the system. In Antigravity, that responsibility moves to the agent instead. So what you manage instead are agents across workspaces. Each workspace becomes a focused environment for a specific task, and each agent can operate independently within it. So one agent can be building a feature while another is handling fixes somewhere else, all happening at the same time. So right now, your role becomes much more about coordination. You have to review what each agent is doing, approve changes, and guide the direction of the work. You're no longer producing every piece yourself, but you still control how everything comes together. So from there, everything just starts to run more smoothly. You spend less time going back and fixing things and more time deciding what actually matters in the build. So the platform takes care of execution while you stay focused on guiding the outcome and making sure that everything is aligned. Agent management is one of the core components you need to understand here, because this is how you stay in control once multiple agents are running at the same time. It's not just about starting tasks. It's about knowing what's happening across your entire setup without things getting confusing. So open the Agent Manager using Command E, and this will give you a full view of every active agent across all of your workspaces. You can see what each agent is working on, its current task, its progress, and overall status. Everything is centralized, so you're not guessing or checking different places just to figure out what's going on. So now, instead of handling one task at a time, you can run multiple agents all simultaneously, and each one can take on a completely different task. One agent can be building a feature, while another is fixing bugs, and both are running at the same time. All of it stays visible and manageable from the same dashboard here, so you're not losing track even when several things are moving forward together. So this is where workspace organization starts to matter. Each agent operates inside its own isolated workspace, so the way that you structure those workspaces directly affects how easy it is to manage everything. If workspaces are unclear or not properly scoped, then it becomes harder to track what each agent is responsible for. Keeping them clearly named and then tied to specific tasks makes coordination much smoother and helps avoid conflicts between agents working in parallel. So control comes from how you handle permissions. Starting with review mode is the safest approach because the agent will ask before executing terminal commands or making file changes outside its workspace. So that gives you visibility before anything actually happens. You're still letting the agent do the work, but you're not giving up oversight. And as you get more comfortable, you can then adjust permissions per workspace depending on the task. So some tasks are safe enough to run with fewer restrictions, while others need a lot closer control. So that balance lets you move faster without risking unwanted changes or conflicts across your system. The editor is where most of the actual building happens, so getting comfortable here makes a big difference. It looks and feels familiar right away because it's built on VS Code, but the way it works is very different once you start using it. And what stands out is the AI layer built directly into the editor. It's not just basic autocomplete. Everything is aware of your project as a whole, not just the line that you're working on. So when you start typing and you use tab completion, you'll notice these suggestions are not random. They're based on the full context of your project. It reads your files, your structure, and what you're trying to build, then suggests something that actually fits. It's not just completing syntax, it's continuing logic in a way that makes sense for the app. So as you keep editing, the agent is also working in the background. It understands what you're doing in real time, and it can step in with suggestions and fixes or continuations without you needing to prompt it every time. It's tracking the surrounding code and then adjusting based on that, so the help you get is always relevant to what you're working on. Another part that changes how you work is natural language commands inside of the editor. You don't always need to write the code yourself. Rather, you can just describe what you want directly and the agent handles the implementation inline. So for example, you can type @ and then reference a file like app.jsx, then describe what you want to change or add. The agent then reads that context and applies the update inside of the file. So you're not jumping to a separate chat or a different tool. Everything just happens directly where you are actually working. And once you get used to this, the editor stops being just a place where you write code. It becomes a place where you guide the build while the agent handles all the heavy lifting in real time. So this next part is what helps you stay confident in what the agent is doing, especially as tasks get more complex. Antigravity works in a higher level abstraction, which means that you don't have to go through raw code changes just to understand what's happening. Instead of reading diffs or scanning files, everything is just organized into task groups, and these groups show the work in plain language with clear labels, statuses, and a plan for how the task is being executed. So when you send a prompt, the agent doesn't just jump straight into changes, it breaks the work down into smaller subtasks. Each step is visible along with its current status, so you can follow the process from start to finish without digging into the code itself. You can monitor all of this in real time through the task groups. As the agent works, you'll see the task list populate, showing each step it plans to take. You can then click into any subtask and see even more detail, including the plan it created before even starting and how it's executing that step. So this gives you a clear view of where the agent is in the process at any given moment. So another important part here then is artifact verification. So before changes are fully applied, you get a chance to review what the agent actually produced. So this then creates a sort of checkpoint between the agent doing its work and then those changes becoming part of your project. So you're not blindly accepting updates. You're seeing exactly what's being added or modified, and over time, this does build trust. You're not relying on the agent without visibility. You can follow the plan, you can check the outputs and decide what gets applied. It makes the whole process just easier to manage, especially when tasks become larger or more detailed. Now, the thing is, anti-gravity agents don't just work in one place, they operate across 3 surfaces at the same time: the editor, the terminal, and the browser. So that means a single agent can write code, it can run commands, and then check the result without you having to move between tools. So when you give it a prompt, the agent handles the full flow. It can build a feature in the editor, it can install any dependencies through the terminal, and then it can start a local server and then open up the browser to see if everything works. So what normally takes multiple steps and constant switching just then becomes one continuous process. And this is where workflows become much more efficient. You're not manually writing code, then going to the terminal, then opening a browser to test. Rather, the agent handles those transitions all on its own, so the process stays connected from start to finish. And when you run multiple agents, this becomes even more powerful. Each one can take on a different part of the system while still staying coordinated. So one agent can focus on back-end logic while another works on the front end and checks it in the browser. Their outputs feed into each other, so everything stays aligned as the build moves forward. And this removes a lot of the back and forth that usually slows things down. So you're not just managing each step manually anymore. The agent takes care of the writing, the running, and the testing, and your focus stays on reviewing what's being built and making sure that it matches what you want. Once the agent starts producing results, then the next step is guiding it so that the output actually matches what you want. So feedback in anti-gravity works through simple, natural conversation. After the agent generates anything and something, you don't need to rewrite everything or start over. You just kind of describe what needs to change, and then the agent updates its work while keeping the rest intact. It already understands the context of what it built, so your feedback then builds directly on top of that. And this is where feedback loops do come in, because each follow-up prompt then refines the previous result. You're not resetting the process every time, you're adjusting specific parts. If something looks off, you point it out. If something needs improvement, then you describe it. The agent updates only those areas while leaving everything else as it is. So for example, you can start by asking the agent to add an About section below the Hero section with a short bio. And once that's in place, you can then refine it step by step. You might change the layout to a 2-column design, or adjust the length of the bio, or tweak the font size. Each prompt builds on the last one, so the result gradually improves without losing what already works. And over time, you can also guide how the agent works more generally. So if you have a preferred layout style, a structure, or way of organizing things, you can state that once, and then the agent keeps that in mind for future tasks, so it starts producing outputs that align more closely with your workflow. And as this continues, you can spend less time correcting the same old things and then more time making small adjustments. The process becomes more about refining than rebuilding, and that's what makes it efficient. So once you start working on larger projects, the way you use anti-gravity will definitely change again, because you're no longer dealing with small features or simple builds. You're now going to manage a full code base. And this is where the system starts to show its real advantage. Handling large code bases becomes much more straightforward simply because the agent already has the full context of your project. You don't have to manually search through files or keep track of where everything is. You can just ask the agent to navigate, refactor, or extend any part of the code base using plain language, and it understands where to go and what to change. Coordination also becomes more important at this level. Instead of having one agent handle pretty much everything, it just works better to break tasks into clear independent units. So one agent can focus on a specific feature, while another handles a different component. And you can run them in parallel and monitor everything through the agent manager, which just keeps the entire project moving forward without things getting stuck or overlapping. Debugging follows the same pattern. Instead of going through logs and tracing issues manually, you just give the agent full context, and that includes error messages, the files involved, and what you expect the system to do. The agent uses that information to trace the problem across the codebase, identify what's causing it, and then propose a fix. And once that's done, it can apply the fix as well. So what usually takes a long debugging session becomes just more of a guided process where you review what the agent finds and then you decide how to move forward. So at this level, you're no longer thinking in parts like front end, back end, or database as separate steps. Everything is handled as one connected system. Anti-gravity allows you to build an entire project from end to end inside a single workspace. You describe the full scope of the application, and then the agent takes care of the rest. It sets up the folder structure, it creates the necessary files, and then it builds out the logic without you having to move between different tools or environments. So front end and back end coordination also just happen through the same process. You can prompt the agent to build both sides together, and it makes sure everything lines up. API endpoints, data flow, and UI components are all connected from the start, so you're not dealing with mismatches later on. Database management follows the same exact pattern. You don't need to manually configure anything. You can ask the agent to just create schemas and write queries and connect the database to your application. It then handles the setup, the integration, and if something doesn't work, well, then it flags the issue so that you can review it. And all this happens in the background while the agent builds. So you're not switching between tools or setting things up all step by step. The focus just stays on describing what the system should do, and the agent takes care of putting everything together. Speed and anti-gravity doesn't come from typing faster, it comes from how you prompt. A clear and detailed prompt sent once will always get you further than a vague one that needs multiple corrections. The more complete your instruction is up front, the less back and forth you need later on, and that's why it helps to front load your requirements. Instead of sending small prompts one after another, just describe the full scope of what you want to build in a single instruction. And this gives the agent enough context to generate something usable right away, rather than something you have to keep fixing. So from there, treat every response as a draft. Do not expect it to be perfect on the first try either. You review what the agent produces, so look for what needs adjustment, and then send a follow-up prompt with specific changes. So that loop of prompt, review, and then refine is what moves things forward quickly. Each follow-up builds on the previous result. The agent doesn't start over, it updates what's already there. So now you're only changing what needs to be improved while everything else just stays intact. And that keeps the process efficient and avoids unnecessary rework. So the overall flow is simple. You start with an idea, you describe it clearly, then we let the agent generate the initial version, and then we refine it step by step. And as we continue, the agent just builds context from our earlier prompts, so each iteration becomes faster and more aligned with what we actually want. Now, browser sub-agents also add another layer to what agents can already do, especially when it comes to interacting with real web environments. So the setup starts naturally when you trigger a task that requires browser access. And once you do that, Antigravity prompts you to install the Chrome extension. And that extension is what allows the agent to control your browser. So it can click, it can scroll, it can type, and it can move through pages all on its own. After that's in place, control becomes important. You don't want the agent freely accessing any site without limits. And that's why the allow list and deny list comes in. These let you define exactly which URLs the agent is allowed to visit and which ones it should avoid. And this protects against things like prompt injection, where a web page could try to influence the agent in unintended ways. You can manage all of this through anti-gravity settings under Advanced Settings. Another detail that matters is how the browser runs, because Antigravity uses a separate Chrome profile specifically for the agent. And this keeps everything isolated from your personal browsing session, so there's no overlap between what you're doing and what the agent is doing. And once everything is configured, the browser sub-agent can work like a tester. It can open your app, it can move through different pages, it can check your layouts and report back on what it finds. So say, for example, you can have it go through a portfolio site, open each section, and then verify that everything loads and works as expected. This adds a layer of validation directly into the workflow where testing happens alongside building without needing to handle it manually. Another thing is, skills and rules are what help your agents stay consistent, especially when you start using anti-gravity across more than just one project. So here's what you need to do. Let's start in the agent panel here, click the 3-dot dropdown, and then go to Rules. Rules act like always-on guardrails for every agent task. So if you want the agent to always write clean code, follow a specific structure, or avoid deprecated libraries, this is where those instructions belong. Once a rule is added, it applies across your work automatically, so you don't have to repeat the same direction every time. Skills work differently, so go to the skills section here, and this is where you can add a custom skill directory for your agents. A skill is an instruction set the agent loads only when it needs it. So unlike rules, which are always active, skills are pulled into context only when the task is relevant. And that keeps the agent focused and efficient instead of loading unnecessary instructions for every single request. Next, open the MCP server section from the same dropdown. MCP integration lets Antigravity connect to external tools and services, giving agents secure access to things like databases, APIs, and other resources. And that means you don't have to keep copying information into the chat manually. And the walkthrough sequential thinking is installed from the MCP store as a quick example of how this setup works. So finally, go to Antigravity settings, then advanced settings, and look here at terminal command auto execution. So this controls how much freedom the agent has when running terminal commands. Always proceed allows commands to run automatically, while request review makes the agent ask for approval before anything executes. You can also fine-tune this further using the allow list and deny list, so certain commands are trusted while others still require lighter control. The last piece is how you manage knowledge, because this directly affects how well your agents perform over time. Antigravity includes a built-in knowledge base that agents learn from and contribute to as they work. Even if you don't see a dedicated interface for it, the concept still applies. The better organized your information is, the easier it is for the agent to pull the right context and produce accurate results across different tasks. So what you feed into the agent actually matters. If your instructions are vague or scattered, then the output usually needs more correction. But when you can provide clear and structured information upfront, then things move much faster. So that includes project requirements, coding conventions, and any reference material the agent should follow. So giving that context early on reduces unnecessary back and forth. How you structure that information also makes a difference. Documentation works best when it's broken into focused sections with clear labels. Short, direct, and easy to scan content helps the agent understand and retrieve what it needs during more complex tasks. If everything is grouped together or written in long blocks, it becomes harder for the agent to use it effectively. But since there isn't always a visible knowledge base interface, a practical approach here is creating your own structured documentation through prompts. You can define how things should be written, organized, and referenced, then let the agent build and follow that structure. And over time, this becomes a reliable source of context that the agent can use across different parts of your workflow. Right now, it's not about learning more features, it's more about using what you already have the right way. Everything that you've seen here works best when it's connected. So agents, workflows, feedback, structure, all of it builds onto each other. When you approach it like a system instead of isolated tools, the results start to compound. So take one project, apply this properly, and then focus on getting the process right. And once that's in place, everything else just becomes easier to build and improve and scale. Thank you for watching and investing your time with me today. I'll see you at the next one.